framework that you use?
Sure. It's like, without getting too smart, you can just kind of look at the TAMs, right? Salesforce is effectively like billing itself after sales and marketing teams and the kind of business operations teams. It's strictly a piece of kind of the spend of a company, and it's one vertical, right? It's, they've expanded a bit, but substantially it's one vertical. Whereas Ethereum's TAM is open-ended. There's, in a way, you can't value it because what it can do is completely open-ended. In the last, well, in 2017, we weren't sure what Ethereum was able to do. We only had this idea that, this could be a new kind of computer for the internet, a new platform for the internet. But we had no idea. So all kinds of ICOs, initial coin offerings came out, and we had stuff from Coin and weird things that didn't make any sense. Over the last 2 years or so, two use cases actually have emerged for Ethereum. One is this thing called decentralized finance, or what people call DeFi, basically using Ethereum to do things that banks used to do, borrowing, lending, and things like that. The other one is NFTs, non-fungible tokens, where essentially any artist now has a piece of magical software that allows them to mint unique and scarce digital assets. We could never create scarce digital assets prior to, practically speaking, Ethereum's kind of NFT technology. So now we have these two things. If you try to value Ethereum 3 years ago, you couldn't have come up with any of these because you wouldn't have known ahead of time that they were going to be invented. So narrowly speaking, you could value Ethereum's opportunity in terms of the scale of the financial system if you just look at DeFi, and that's roughly speaking about $3 trillion a year. That's the amount the global banking and auditing system it generates per year, about $3 trillion. Arthur Hayes did this amazing analysis on his blog. Everyone who's interested should read that. I think it's the best single piece of kind of top to bottom kind of thesis for Ethereum with a framework for valuation, and you can read it in 15 minutes. Arthur Hayes, we can link to it. But yeah, like basically it's like if you just want to take a conservative view, take the global financial system and the banking system and the auditing system, $3 trillion in revenue a year. If Ethereum captures 0.1% of that revenue, it would be worth about $4,000 a token. If it captures 1%, it would be worth $40,000 per Ethereum, per Ether. And that's a 20x from where we are today. So like that's very clear, and that's only one use case, right? And because it's a platform, it can, like 6 months from now, we could be talking about some entire new case we couldn't have imagined and estimated right now.
I mean, those estimations of how much it could be valued, let's say 0.1% or 1%. I mean, how is that? I mean, are you using, for example, okay, eventually the platform can take a revenue, and so perhaps there could be future cash flows, and therefore, we could have a valuation on Ethereum? Or are you just taking it more as like, hey, this could be a store of value that people adopt, and through the adoption, right, the value of Ethereum increases? What's your kind of approach with that?
It's the first one. It's basically Ethereum captures fees for using it. I think it's helpful to maybe just walk through kind of what Ethereum is, right? I think it's still a very vague concept for a lot of people. Like maybe to contrast it with Bitcoin. Bitcoin's main value proposition is that it's a scarce digital asset, and it's now emerged. There's only 21 million Bitcoin that will ever be generated, and because of that, it's scarce. And if enough people believe and it has value, then it forms this belief network, and effectively, people use it as a reliable and neutral store of value. That's kind of the Bitcoin value proposition, but it doesn't do anything really else beyond that, and it doesn't want to. It just wants to solve the money use case or the store of value use case in a digital format. You can't really write an application to Ethereum, right? There's nothing for you to do. That's part of the reason why when you join one of these like Bitcoin Clubhouse or Bitcoin Twitter, the only thing they will ever talk about is the price, because there is nothing else to talk about. You join Ethereum Twitter or Ethereum Clubhouse, and it is just an endless deluge of kind of technological development and software releases. Ethereum is software. I mean, Bitcoin is software too, but it's software that has no roadmap, or the roadmap is very done, basically. The Bitcoin people think that the less roadmap, the better, because then you can't screw it up. With Ethereum, it's an extremely rich roadmap. It's like going to the AWS reInvent conference. It's like, okay, the year is 2021. What new features are we going to ship this year? What new features are we going to ship next year? How are we going to improve the user experience for wallets, for storage, for insurance? It's like, it's viewed as the same way as a software company would manage their product roadmap. So it's this constantly evolving piece of software. And because of that, stuff is built on top of Ethereum. You can be a software developer on Ethereum. Being a software developer on Bitcoin has very thin meaning. It basically means like, oh, we can maybe support it in the wallet. You can't, there's nothing you can do. And the reason why Ethereum can do this is because it's essentially where do we start? To run, basically, Ethereum is a network of computers that, well, it's a network of computers that elect to run the Ethereum software to validate transactions. And the way you deploy applications to the Ethereum computer is by targeting this runtime called the Ethereum virtual machine. Java has a virtual machine. Ethereum has a virtual machine. You see the parallels very clearly. And you write applications to it. And this virtual machine runs on top of actual hardware. It could be x86, could be ARM. And these are about 10,000 computers nodes distributed in the world. So people treat it like a computer system that they run, just like they treat AWS as a cloud that they can deploy applications to. So when people think about, like, I find that people who don't like Bitcoin because they find it to be a little bit of a more about a religion around a digital rock and constantly fighting this belief system, it's very political. That when that doesn't resonate with them, I find that it resonates better when you talk about Ethereum as, don't worry about this cryptocurrency nonsense. It's just software, okay? And you can write applications to it. And you know what? If you're a software developer, you can, and you know JavaScript, the language for Ethereum, which is called Solidity, is very similar. You can deploy an application in a weekend. And once they can see that, they don't have to. You don't have to argue about supply and tokenomics and all that stuff. You just treat it as kind of a place where you can deploy useful applications. And I think that's the right way to view it as software. That gets rid of all the unhealthy debate about prices and your blockchain versus my blockchain. It's just software.
Mm-hmm.